Unmuted. I'm your host, Courtland Warren, and today we explore the secret word that will keep you focused, confident, and respected. Let's go. Have you ever found yourself saying yes to something that you really wanted to say no to? Or perhaps you said no when you actually wanted to say yes. Well, in either of those cases, you are actually out of integrity with yourself based on the true definition of the word. The word integrity is an often misused and incorrectly utilized word, particularly in personal development. Because the word integrity comes from the math term integer, and an integer is a whole number. So when we speak about integrity, what we're really speaking to is wholeness, like no fragments, no fractions, so to speak, right? You are whole and complete. So let's say that a person asks a favor. They ask to help them move. They ask you to borrow money. They ask you to attend an event that you really don't want to attend, but you say yes, but you really wanted to say no. Right, and let's say it wasn't on a Zoom call where they could see your face. They picked up the phone, they asked, would you attend this event with me? And you're like, sure. And they're like, great. But yet they have no idea that your facial reaction is, like teeth clenched, jaws tight, like, damn it. I said I was gonna stop doing this. I had the weekend scheduled for myself, for some self-care, for some me time, whatever the case might be. But you said yes. And even if you go through with it, in actuality, you were out of alignment with yourself. You said no, you said yes when you really wanted to say no. At other times, maybe someone asks you, well, is there anything you need? Can I support you in some way? And you're like, no, I got it. I'm good. It's fine. Well, you really wanted to say, yes, I would love your help. I would love your support. Well, you said no when you really wanted to say yes, and you were, again, out of alignment. So by the true term, integrity, that being wholeness, when you're out of alignment, so when you are in integrity with yourself, what we're really speaking about is being aligned with what you say, what you feel, what you think, and how you act. When all four of those are in alignment, then you are in integrity with yourself. So it takes a lot more than whether or not a person tells the truth about an event to say that person, well, you're not in integrity. Well, you got to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, also how they're acting, right? You got to know all of those things to assess whether or not a person is actually in integrity. But that said, let's explore, though, that word that will keep you focused, confident, and respected. And the word is no. N-O. Particularly for those of us who desire to be unmuted in our lives, right? We have bought into an idea that we're not ready yet. We're not qualified. It's not our turn. We're too young or perhaps too old. And what happens is, because we're looking to gain the approval or the acceptance of other people, we'll find ourselves taking on things that actually aren't ours. Consider the amount of time that you've spent in building a dream that doesn't even belong to you. The time that you've spent, the time that you've given, the time that you've essentially donated to building a dream that's not even yours, where the children of someone else will benefit, but perhaps not your own. So your desire to start your business maybe has those elements in play. And you're like, well, I want something that is my own. I want something that I can pass on as a legacy to my family, to my children, to my children's children. One of the things that you're going to have to get very comfortable with, and a word that you're going to have to become very fluent in, is the word no. Because when you begin to say no to other things, you're actually saying yes to yourself. So the word no allows you to establish the boundaries that are necessary. Right, the boundaries that are necessary for you to grow into who you desire to be and the contribution that you desire to make to the world. Now, in saying no, particularly if it's difficult, a lot of people are like, well, I just want to give. I just want to, I just want to be there for people. I like helping people. Well, that's great. That's great to the extent that your dreams are not being put on the back burner as a result. So I contend that you living your best life, that you leveling up, that you being essential to the marketplace, that you adding value to the world, to your life and to the life of others, is not does not require you being less than what you're capable of, so that someone else can be lifted. If you saying yes to other people means that you have to diminish yourself and diminish your dreams, then you got some wires crossed, right? And another level of thinking then is required. Now, in saying no, there's a framework that I believe makes it easier for you to become fluent in the word. First and foremost, you've got to know what you want. You've got to know what it is that you desire. I often say to people that, well, people, oh, I don't know what I want. I don't know. And they go to this place of confusion where there's a benefit to being confused. The major benefit to being confused is you don't have to be responsible for taking action. See, as long as you're confused, you don't have to do anything different. Am I communicating that? Right, does that make sense? Okay, so if you notice yourself oftentimes going to confusion, not sure, I don't know, I'm not clear, right? That is a lot of times, as long as you are confused, then you're not responsible for taking on new action. So, first and foremost, if you're going to be fluent in this very powerful word that protects your boundaries and keeps you focused, disciplined, and produces confidence, it is important that you know what you want. So your mind, your brain is teleological. The book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz really speaks to this. Teleological, a lot of military weaponry is built on this, but we're just essentially saying that your subconscious mind is more effective and works optimally when it has a target. So just leaving things in the air and just kind of gray and nebulous and I'm not sure, then your mind doesn't have a target on which to focus. Okay, it doesn't have a target on which to give it attention. And so you are misusing your reticular activation system. Your reticular activation system is that part of your brain that allows you to lock in on or to focus on a thing or an idea. For example, let's say you're in the market for a new car and you go buy that new vehicle. And when you get it, you think, man, you got it that night, you close the deal that night. And so when you drive it home, it's dark in the neighborhood. So you're not able to see the other cars is what I'm getting at. And so you're thinking, man, I've not seen anyone in this car, right? I'm going to be the first person in the city with this car. Okay, and then the next morning as you're driving to work, it's like you see them every place. It's as though they went on sale and you just happen to be a part of the sale, right? It's like once your attention is on it, you notice it everywhere. Have you ever noticed that, right? Have you ever, like as soon as you put your attention on it, now it's everywhere. It draws your energy. That's your reticular activation system. So when you give yourself a target, it's the reason why goal setting is so important, why writing your goals down, it really does matter. It's not just some quirky idea in personal development. Every time you write down a goal, every time you review it, every time you see it, you state it out loud, your definite main purpose statement and so forth, your personal mission statement, what it does is it gives your mind, your brain a place to focus. And now what's necessary to bring it into your life, right, you pay attention to. So you want to know what it is that you want, okay? And when you do this, your decision-making becomes a lot easier. So I've often said that decision-making is a lot easier when you know what your purpose is. Because now when someone enters with an idea that is not in alignment with what you want to create, it becomes easier for you to stay focused on what it is that you want and what you desire, all right? So number one, you got to know what you want. Now, K-N-O-W, you got to K-N-O-W what you want in order to start to say no, N-O, more fluently. See what we did there? Okay. So in order to say no, N-O, more fluently, you got to know K-N-O-W what it is that you want. Secondly, in knowing what you want, you got to be sure that the place where you are, right, the environment that you're in is fertile for your dream to be realized. I often find that people are out sharing their dreams, they're sharing their goals, and they're sharing it with people who simply don't get it. And after a while, enough of doing that, you end up muting yourself. You end up getting muted because you're sharing your dreams with people who don't see what you see. They don't have the vision that you have. One of the grave mistakes, right? Egregious, in fact, mistakes that you can make is to begin to share your dreams with those who don't understand it, because you find yourself having to explain in such a way that they begin to get it. And if your vision is not yet clear, you can share too soon. And if you start to share too soon, before that idea is mature in your own mind, you could actually start to lose confidence. You could actually start to question. This can for sure lead to doubt. And so what you want to do is ensure that the environment that you're in, the place that you're in, is conducive for your dream to take shape, for your dream to begin to materialize. That's one of the things that's so powerful about masterminds, and particularly the Alchemy Circle, which is the mastermind that I run, is so powerful is because you're in the space and environment with like-minded people who are all moving towards a bigger dream, a bigger expression of who they are that adds value to the marketplace. You cannot begin the work. It is too much work to convince people who aren't even moving in the first place to get on board with where you desire to go. And a lot of times what happens is, because you love them so much and you care about them so much, you'll actually slow down, if not even stop, long enough for them to catch up. It's like my mom, she noticed me doing this, particularly growing up and young in my professional career. She noticed that I was out still looking to bring along those that I'd grown up with, until finally she had had enough, and she simply said, "Listen, baby, listen now. Those that came with you can't always go with you." So, wow, pretty profound, right? Just because they came with you doesn't mean they can go with you. See, and that's not about leaving people behind, but nature requires that a price be paid. And if they've not paid the price, then you don't get to just take them on this free ride, so to speak. I'm elaborating now, okay? So the environment must be fertile for the dream. Number one, you got to know what you want. Number two, you got to make sure that you're in an environment that is conducive for your dream to materialize. And then number three, very important, you've got to stay in motion. If you're going to become fluent in the word no, you've got to make sure that you are in motion. You got to make sure that you're moving. One of the things that will keep people from asking you to do things is when they know you as a person who's always got something going on. Right? They're not going to be just coming to you and asking you to do them favors or to, help them with the things that are on their plate, if they see that you are constantly in motion yourself, right? To say this differently, they will start to be mindful of and respect how you use your time. Think about this for a second. Okay, so when people are asking you to be entertained by trivialities, rumor, gossip, right? They just call you up in the middle of the day to share with you a rumor or some gossip about someone else's life. What they're actually expressing to you is that they don't value or respect your time and how you've been using it. Therefore, they see you as a person that they can just call up randomly to speak gossip or ill of someone else. Now, what kind of sense does that make? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but it does speak to how they do or don't value you. So when someone calls you, so just the next time someone calls you with rumor and gossip, as you're listening to that, right, hopefully you'll listen for a shorter period of time, because actually what they're communicating to you is how they value you and the use of your time. Notice how no one calls up the super achiever. No one calls up the high achiever with trivial BS. No one is calling up high achievers, asking them to spend hours on the phone talking in trivialities. That just does not happen. Okay. And if there is an attempt, the high achiever, the super achiever makes it very clear that this is not okay. And you know what? I got to go. So you want to stay in motion, have something going on. And as a result of that, it becomes more difficult for other people to get your time and attention because you are moving in a particular direction. Okay. I hope that helps. All right. So if you want to be fluent, right, in the word no, you got to know what it is that you want. Make sure that the environment is conducive for the growth. And then number three, you got to be moving. You want to stay in action. Now, that said, the word no, let's look at now why we don't say no. Okay, why we don't do it. And ultimately, what it comes down to is if you're saying yes when you really want to say no, and even when you say no, but you really wanted to say yes, what you're actually looking to do is gain the approval and the acceptance of someone else, someone obviously outside of you. Right. So, which makes sense to a degree. Why? Because the first programming and conditioning that we must all overcome or deal with is that of acceptance and of approval. See, if no one accepts you or approves of you on day one, like the day you showed up on the planet, then you don't make it to day two. So the approval programming and conditioning, we condition ourselves, right? We figure out what it takes to be accepted by or approved of by other people. And so we come into the world though, like our integrity cup is full, right? Because notice how a small child, like they will just be honest. Like no one teaches the small child how to be honest. The small child just say what's on their mind. They're perfectly self-expressed. They'll dance like no one's watching. They wear what they want to wear. They don't care that you got polka dots and stripes. They'll wear cowboy boots to the pool. It matters not. Why? Because their self-approval is high. But then life happens or life experiences happen. And as a result of those life experiences happening, that cup of self-approval that was filled to the brim because we were in integrity with ourselves, right, starts to get a little chip in it, a little crack in it, right? Someone said they were going to be there, they don't show up. A friend promised to be your friend forever, and then the next week they won't even play with you on the playground. Parents divorce. You don't make the soccer team. You got looked over on a science project or whatever the case might be. And as a result of these agreements being broken with us, it puts a little chip in that self-approval cup. And what happens as a result is our personal integrity starts to seep out and it starts to leak. And so what used to be filled to the brim is now there's very little remaining, let's say. So now we feel this void. We feel like there's something missing. And so in order to fill that void, we go out into our lives and we look for someone to help us refill it. And as a result of our attempts to refill, we will go in and we'll say, all right, I'll say yes, but I really want to say no in hopes that Cherie will like me, or in hopes that Rick will be my friend, or in hopes that Gladys will tell other people that I'm a good person. And so what happens is we're now out with our self-approval cup, hoping that it can be filled by someone else, and it doesn't work. So now you fast forward to today, and you have people who will bend over backwards for the benefit of someone else, but they don't remain disciplined themselves long enough to have what their dreams are. And the only way that cup, that analogous cup that I'm speaking of, the only way it can be repaired, the only way that it can be fixed is through keeping your word to yourself. And that is inevitably going to require a willingness on your part to say no when it doesn't align with what you want. And in saying no, you create a boundary for yourself. In saying no, what you recognize that in setting and enforcing that boundary, there is a risk, okay, that you could lose the friendship. We know that internally. See, one of the reasons we don't say no, we don't maintain our boundaries. Okay, see, a boundary is only as good as its enforcement. So if I have boundaries that I don't enforce, the only reason why I would not enforce that boundary is because I fear losing the relationship. But any relationship that I only keep by being unwilling to stand on my own principles and enforcing my boundaries is doomed for failure anyway, because resentment begins to build. Now I'm off into a different topic. Maybe another episode, but just to recap that idea, right? So any relationship that I can only keep by not enforcing my boundaries is one that is doomed for failure anyway. If for no other reason, then my resentment will continue to grow because I continue to compromise what my boundaries are. Okay, I didn't have that one like kind of scripted in my notes here, but I believe that'll help someone. You got the idea? All right, so with that, know what you want, make sure the environment is fertile, stay in motion, and then when it comes to you saying no, right, recognize that the reason why we compromise our own dreams is because we fear what might happen if we enforce our boundaries and how that could risk losing the relationships. But understand what actually happens then if you will only say yes, okay? You actually cripple yourself. I went to Chat GPT and I asked Chat GPT, the AI software tool. I asked Chat GPT for an allegorical story that illustrates the power of saying no or the drawbacks of saying yes too often. And so I won't take credit for the story. I'll just take credit for the prompt, because I've been working with this technology a bit, and I was quite fascinated with this story that it just made up as a result of saying no. So it goes this way, and then we'll close out this episode. All right. So once upon a time, there was a farmer who had a beautiful garden. The garden was filled with all kinds of fruits and vegetables, and people came from far and wide to see this garden. One day, a group of travelers came to the farmer and they asked if they could take some of the produce from the garden. The farmer, who was known for his generosity, agreed to let them take whatever they needed. However, as the days went by, more and more people came to the farmer's garden, each asking for a share of the produce. The farmer, who didn't want to disappoint anyone, continued to say yes to every request. Soon, the garden was picked clean, and the farmer himself was left with nothing. Feeling discouraged, the farmer went to his wise old neighbor for advice. The neighbor listened to the farmer's story and then said, "My friend, you have learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes saying no is the most generous thing you can do. By saying no to those who would take advantage of your kindness, you are preserving your resources and ensuring that you can continue to give to those who truly need it." The farmer took the neighbor's advice to heart and began to say no to those who came to his garden. At first, some people were disappointed, but over time, they came to respect the farmer's boundaries and appreciate the abundance of his garden. And the farmer, who had learned the power of saying no, was able to continue sharing his bounty with those who truly appreciated it. Chat GPT. Okay, so now one, I think that was a pretty powerful story. Also, I wanted to kind of incorporate what things that you began to do and use, right, to leverage technology to unmute yourself, right? I attempted that there, and I thought that story really does speak to why it's important to start saying no. So the farmer The farmer says yes until everything is gone, and even the farmer is left with nothing. Think about that. I have family like that that would definitely fit in this category, particularly one of my aunts, she comes to mind, who will give you the shirt off her back, right? And sometimes we can give to where we have nothing. And then what? Notice how the people kept coming to the farmer, asking for more. And because they knew he was generous, then more people out of the woodworks, they just kept showing up to get it. At first, he was willing to give to those who needed it. But then there were just people who were just showing up to just gather more and more. Understand this, that when you are a person who gives, there will be people who will take advantage of your willingness to give, and then they'll take what you've created, what you've toiled over, what you've worked on, they'll take what you've created and produced, and then go out and use it to their own benefit, leaving you with nothing. And then there are those who you really want to help, but you are not in position to help them because you've given to those who were actually capable of doing it for themselves. They were actually capable of doing it on thetheir own. Short story, and I'll let it be. Now, when he listens to this, he may not like it, but I think it'll be a good lesson for him. So my youngest son, Sterling, gets home after, sophomore year of college. And I mean, he had a great year. It's a tough year, challenging year, but he was able to make president's honor roll, dean's honor roll, so forth. Okay, so he's looking around the house and he's looking for food. I could tell he's looking for food. He's opening the fridge, close. You ever do that deal where you open the fridge, then you close it back? Because did I just see what I thought I saw? Meaning nothing. Closes it back. And I asked him, I said, so, when are you gonna start to work? When are you gonna get back to work and so forth? What are you gonna do? And he's like, well, I want to get back, I want to go back to Quick Trip. But in order to go back to Quick Trip, I got to shave my beard. And I'm like, okay. And I said, oh, because you handle food and so forth. So yeah, you got to be clean. We can wear a mustache, but you can't wear the beard. I said, oh, okay. So you haven't started yet because you want to keep the beard. Yeah, I want to keep the beard. I said, okay, all right. So now a week has passed, 2 weeks has passed, and he's like, so Dad, the groceries, when are the I was like, oh man, I'm full. I'm full, man. I'm full. I'm good. And he's kind of look. He's like, but food for the house. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. And so he just kind of, all right. And so I'm saying to him, well, right now, apparently, you would rather have a beard than you would eat. And he's like, I go with lessons like this with him all the time. He's like, come on. You're remembering that from a week ago? I'm like, well, I mean, basically what you said was you would rather have your facial hair than you would have money in your pocket. So, I mean, I hope that beard has a lot of nutrients and vitamins in it, right? So he just by this age now, he knows I'm full of lessons in this regard. He just kind of shrugs me off. I'm like, all right, I get it, right? So, but here's my point, right? If you find yourself, making it easier for people who are actually capable, you rob them and you cheat yourself. Sometimes you're saying yes to a thing and to a person who's actually capable. The greater gift that you can give to them is to say no, not from a place of that is unloving, and not from a place where you're not willing to be there for them when they need it, but actually from a place of respect. I love and respect you so much that I will hold you capable of doing what I know and you're capable of. I hope that helps. And if it does, don't keep this podcast a secret. let people know about it, right? It's my contribution. It's a way of me being a solution to what I've witnessed in many, many years in personal development. And that simply being that if there are a lot of people who have muted themselves, there are books that don't get written, there are songs that aren't being sang, there are businesses that never get started because an individual somewhere along the way started to believe that who they were wasn't enough, that they weren't ready yet, that they weren't qualified, that they didn't have the credentials. And the reality is that contribution is binary. Either you can make a contribution or you can't. So unmute yourself, and in doing so, find the voice that enables you to add value to the world. We'll see you next time.